Good evening to you. Good evening to you. Good evening to you. Good evening to you. I'm trying to remember this song that I created a couple of Black History months ago. And I think it goes like this. Let me see. You're like the midnight, eye shining so bright. Every time I look at you, I know that God is true. You're like the universe crashing through my veins, and I know that black is beautiful. Black is beautiful. Black is beautiful. Black is beautiful. You're like the midnight, eyes shining so bright. Every time I look at you, I know that God is true. You're like the universe crashing through my veins, and I know that black is beautiful. Black is beautiful. Every shade of black is beautiful. Black is beautiful. Yeah. Good evening. Good evening. Glad that you are with us here live. Welcome to Daring Dialogues. I'm your host tonight, Shantae Charles. I hope you're having a great and wonderful evening. It is day 2 of Black History. It's also for us Thinking Thursday, where we usually talk all things theology, all things spirituality. I do believe we have a spiritual leader that we're going to cover tonight in our reading, but let's jump right into it. And I'm going to start with our reading on A Black Woman Did That. A Black Woman Did That. So tonight we are looking at Stacey Abrams. A couple of seasons back, we started reading some of Stacey Abrams' book. We are going to eventually get back to that book, but we did take a break from reading it. So let's talk a little bit about Stacey Abrams. And again, wonderful illustration of Stacey Abrams in the book. So let's see what it has to say. Stacey Abrams is an introvert. As a young person, she says she had few close friends. When she played childhood games with her sister, though, she'd pretend to be a tycoon, a superhero, or president of the world. Not what you think the ambitions of a shy girl would be, but to her parents, those goals weren't out of the question. They believed not that she would actually be the president of the world, but certainly that she could be anything she set her mind to. Stacy's parents, Carolyn and Robert, had big dreams for each of their 6 children. They thought that the foundation for fulfilling those dreams was for the kids to go to school, go to church, and take care of each other. They moved the family from Gulfport, Mississippi to Atlanta, Georgia, so the whole family could take advantage of the many educational opportunities there. Carolyn and Robert earned their master's degrees from Emory University and became ministers in the United Methodist Church, while Stacy attended the best public school they could find in their Atlanta suburb. After Stacy was chosen to be her high school class valedictorian, she was invited, along with other valedictorians from across Georgia, to be a guest of the governor at the reception in their honor. This was her first big step toward her dreams, but it was also her first reality check on what she'd have to overcome as a dynamic young African American woman. When she reached the governor's mansion, she was stopped from entering because a guard at the gate didn't believe she belonged there. Her parents kindly but firmly corrected the guard's assumption. But now, that crushing moment is the theme that Stacy remembers most about the evening, not meeting the governor or being honored alongside her peers from around the state. And that sometimes is the insidious nature of racism and white supremacy because it does seek to leave these sort of mental marks or soul scars on an individual to discourage them from trying to go further. Being stereotyped set Stacy back a bit, but it did not stop her. She wrote in her book, Minority Leader: How to Build Your Future and Make Real Change, that she threw herself into college life hungry to become this new superwoman, the breaker of stereotypes, destroyer of Black woman myths. And her choice of Spelman College, a prestigious historically Black women's college, was the right place for her to be. There, she found a supportive environment among girls who looked like her, and that gave her the confidence to go on to the LBJ School of Public Affairs at the University of Texas at Austin, and then to Yale Law School in Connecticut. After law school, Stacy returned home to Georgia with stellar academic credentials. She practiced law, served as Atlanta's deputy city attorney, was active in Georgia's Democratic Party, and somehow found the time to write and publish novels, one after the other. The writing satisfied her creative side, but politics was her way of helping people, as her parents had taught her to do. Politics also became her vehicle for making history. In 2010, Stacy became the first woman to lead a political party in Georgia, Democratic or Republican. She also became the first Black person in the State House of Representatives to become the House Minority Leader. That means she was the most powerful Democrat in the State House of Representatives at the time. The next challenge she took on was her biggest yet. 26 years after she was stopped at the door of the governor's mansion, she launched a campaign to do what no Black woman had done before: become a state governor. As a business owner and Yale educated tax attorney, she was confident that she was the most qualified candidate for the office. I am a civic leader, she said, who helped register more than 200,000 Georgians to vote, and she had a track record of leadership. In 2018, she fought a tough campaign which earned her national attention. She became a star of the Democratic Party. It was a very close election, but her opponent, Brian Kemp, won. There was evidence that the election may not have been a fair one. While voters in heavily Black, mostly Democratic districts had to travel great distances and wait in long lines to vote, hundreds of unused voting machines were discovered in a warehouse. Before the election, Kemp, who was Georgia's Secretary of State, had ordered a review of the list of people who could vote. It was later determined that 340,000 names had been improperly cut, making it impossible for those people to vote on election day. What's more, Kemp, Stacy's opponent, was overseeing the rules of his own election. Stacy ultimately honored the system and acknowledged the results of the election, but was very clear in stating, "We cannot accept efforts to undermine our right to vote." And then she did something about it. She was so popular at this moment that many people were urging her to run for a Senate seat or even for president in 2020. Instead, she launched an organization called Fair Fight to advocate for voters' rights all around the country. Among her most powerful supporters is former President Obama, who said, "In a time when too many folks are focused simply on how to win elections, Stacy's somebody who cares about something more important, why we should. That's the kind of politics we should practice." In little more than a decade, Stacy rose from being a force in the state politics to a household name around the country. She is well known for her efforts to make elections free and fair for all Americans. I need to reach those who've given up their power. My job, our job, is to arm them with information. She promotes voter participation through her national organization, Fair Fight. She also produced the documentary, All In: The Fight for Democracy, about voter suppression. She said, "We should not live in a nation where your access to democracy depends on celebrity, your wealth, or your zip code." Stacey Abrams was an avid reader, from a young age. In elementary school, she began reading chapter books before most of her classmates. She particularly loved science fiction. She started writing plays and stories in college. Then she moved on to writing the romantic suspense novels that led to publishing deals. She has published 8 novels under the pen name Selena Montgomery. Stacey Abrams. All right. Moving on to the Fierce 44, Black Americans Who Shook Up the World. Tonight we are looking at, we're going to be looking at Alvin Ailey, and I'm going to adjust one of the people we're looking at tonight so that we cover someone in our Theology Thursday. So the first person we're going to start out with is Alvin Ailey. Why? Because Alvin Ailey brought the beauty of Black bodies to the fight for justice. And this is a lovely rendering of a young Alvin Ailey. For those of you who are interested in dance, Alvin has the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater has a new program that's, I believe, called Ailey for All or Ailey for Everyone. And it's a program that allows you to sign up. So it doesn't matter what your age is, what your occupation is. You can actually take online classes now. And they teach you virtually dance classes. So for anybody that's interested. Now, Alvin Ailey is very dear to me because my youngest brother made history by becoming the first resident choreographer for the Alvin Ailey Company, which is a huge deal. His name is Jamar Roberts. And so my connection to Ailey is very personal to my family. He gets an opportunity now to not just dance, because he retired earlier this year from dancing, but he gets to choreograph new works for the company, as well as keep the history and the tradition of all of the whole Ailey catalog alive. So he is the person that is in charge of making sure that all of the dances that people know very well, like the collection Revelations, continues on and on and on with the next generations. So that being said, let's talk about the founder, Alvin Ailey. Alvin Ailey lived from 1931 to 1989. Born into poverty in Texas, choreographer Alvin Ailey drew on his knowledge of close-knit Black churches, rural juke joints, fiery protest songs, his own lonely childhood, and his adult life as a man to fuel his passion for dance. The modern dance pioneer and civil rights artist as activists created pieces that have become as important to the definition of American art as tap dance, jazz, and hip hop. His desire to have classically trained Black dancers move to the music of Duke Ellington, gospel, blues, Latin, and African pop was revolutionary. Ailey explored issues of social justice, racism, and spirituality in the African American experience through his art. After a few years of dancing on Broadway, he started his own company in 1958 at the height of the civil rights movement. By 1965, Ailey had stopped performing as a dancer to concentrate on his company and choreographing dances for other performers. He created 79 ballets over the course of his career. Revelations, which premiered in 1960, is Ailey's most celebrated work. The Up From Slavery dance narrative finds beauty in the midst of tragedy and pain, celebrates Black folks' resilience and humanity, and allows hope to overcome tribulation. Even after Ailey's death from an AIDS-related illness in 1989, the company and school have continued to be the premier spot for emerging Black choreographers. The Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater is still one of the most popular dance companies that tours internationally and has performed in dozens of countries on 6 of the 7 continents. Alvin Ailey. Now, let's talk about Richard Allen. Richard Allen is a very interesting character himself. I would encourage doing some more in-depth reading on him. But Richard Allen was the founder of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, or the AME Church, and he lived from 1760 to 1831. Born into enslavement in 1760 in Philadelphia, Negro Richard struck a deal in 1780 to buy his freedom and that of his brother a few years later. Allen, Richard Allen, the name he chose as a freedman, discovered religion after hearing a Methodist preacher at a secret gathering of the enslaved in Delaware. But white Methodists didn't want to pray with black people. So Allen, his wife, Sarah, and others started the Bethel AME Church on July 29, 1794, in a converted blacksmith shop in Philadelphia. Allen was the church's pastor. It was the beginnings of the country's first independent black denomination, which now has more than 6,000 churches with about 3 million members. Recognizing that the formerly enslaved and freedmen needed education, Allen opened a day school for black children and a night school for adults, as well as creating church groups to care for the poor. Many of his sermons and published articles attacked slavery and criticized groups that wanted to send black people back to Africa. Both Allen's family home and Bethel AME were stops on the Underground Railroad, which gave shelter and aid to the enslaved escaping from southern border states. Why did he found African Methodist Episcopal Church? Because God doesn't segregate, but humans do. Richard Allen. One time for the AME Church. All right. And the last up, we're reading from What Color is My World? The Lost History of African American Inventors. And I just remembered, today is not Thursday, is it? It's Wednesday. So you guys got some theology in even on today. All right, we're looking at two inventors. Many of you have probably heard of this one, Lewis Howard Latimer and his bright ideas. And we're going to read a little bit about Edison. And then we're going to go to Dr. Mark Dean. Here we go. Lewis Howard Latimer. Bright ideas. Lewis Howard Latimer was born September 4th, 1848 in Chelsea, Massachusetts, the youngest of 4 children. Just 6 years earlier, his parents, George and Rebecca Latimer, had been enslaved in Virginia. Wanting their children to be born free from enslavement, they fled their owners to Boston, Massachusetts. Once they arrived in Boston, George was jailed as a fugitive while Rebecca hid and waited for him. 2 prominent men championed George's release: Frederick Douglass, an influential ex-slave and the first African American to run for vice president, and William Lloyd Garrison, famed abolitionist and editor. Nevertheless, the judge ruled that George should be returned to his owner in Virginia. Fortunately, an African American minister paid George's owner $400, which is about $9,600 today, for George to be freed. Lewis attended elementary school where he excelled at reading and drawing. But like most young men of that era, he spent most of his time working with his father at various jobs to support their family. In 1864, with the Civil War at its bloodiest peak, 16-year-old Lewis joined the Navy. After serving on the Union gunboat, the USS Massacoit, he was honorably discharged in 1865. Latimer returned to Boston and landed a $3 a week job as an office boy at Crosby and Gould, a patent law firm that specialized in protecting inventors' patents. Here, Latimer observed the draftspeople creating their elaborate and precise drawings of clients' inventions, and taught himself how to do the same. After practicing on his own for several months, Lewis asked the company for the chance to show what he could do. Surprising and impressing everyone at the company with his skill, Latimer was promoted to draftsperson at $20 a week. In 1876, Latimer was hired by Alexander Graham Bell. Name ring a bell? A teacher to deaf children, to draw his invention for a patent application. The invention was the telephone. Latimer and Bell worked all night to finish the blueprints and were able to file the patent just a few hours before another inventor working on a patent, a version of the telephone, making Bell the official inventor by a few hours. In 1880, Latimer moved to Brooklyn, New York to work for the inventor Hiram Maxim, the founder of the U.S. Electric Lighting Company, who was a rival to Thomas Edison. During this time, Latimer devised a method for enclosing the light bulb filament in a cardboard envelope, which kept the filament from breaking. This made the bulb more efficient. Although he received a patent for this breakthrough, all profits went to Maxim. In 1884, Latimer's expertise in electric lighting was so highly regarded that he was hired by Thomas Edison's company. Latimer helped Edison in 3 areas. Number 1, navigating the tricky patent application process. Number 2, protecting Edison's patents by investigating claims against Edison and testifying as an expert witness. And number 3, amassing a comprehensive library on all available knowledge of incandescent lighting. A few years later, Latimer wrote Incandescent Electric Lighting, a practical description of the Edison system in 1890, which was the Bible on incandescent lighting. Latimer continued to work for Edison and patent inventions for the next 27 years. In 1911, Latimer went to work for a private consulting firm until he retired in 1922. He continued to invent and teach until his passing in 1928. Lewis Latimer was an important figure in the development of the light bulb, but he loved the arts and had a passion for science. He painted portraits, he played the flute, and wrote poetry, music, and plays. He was a Renaissance family man. His family life brought him great joy. He married Mary Wilson in 1873, and they had 2 daughters, Janet and Louise. He was active in his Unitarian church and was an activist for civil rights. In his free time, he taught mechanical engineering, drawing, and English to immigrants. This man had free time? To honor his achievements, the Lewis H. Latimer School in Brooklyn was named after him in 1968. In 2006, Lewis Latimer was inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame. So, did Edison invent the first light bulb? Historians list 22 inventors of incandescent lamps before Thomas Edison. In fact, Edison lost several patent lawsuits in which courts ruled that others, notably Joseph Swan in England and William Sawyer in the U.S., had invented light bulbs before him. Edison and his staff of 10 scientists clearly used the work of Joseph Swan in particular when developing their own version of the light bulb. Edison also bought the patents of other inventors. He and his team were able to vastly improve the light bulb to burn longer and brighter than earlier versions and help to make the technology less expensive. Despite not being the original inventor of the light bulb, Edison is responsible for making electricity easily available. He realized that in order for the light bulb to become popular, an entire infrastructure of generators, wires, fixtures, and lamps would be necessary. Edison used his reputation as an inventor to entice investors to give him large amounts of money needed to get this massive infrastructure built. His genius as a science and a businessman helped to bring electricity to the average home. Now, our last person for tonight, Dr. Mark Dean, born 1957, personal computer stuff. Ella's Fast Facts. First, Dr. Dean is a vice president at IBM. He developed the color graphics adapter, which gave color to your personal computer display. Without this, you would be looking at your PC in black and white. He led the team that developed the world's first gigahertz microprocessor. Okay, most of us use a computer pretty much every day, but not like those who use it exclusively for schoolwork. I use it for school too, but how else am I going to keep my Facebook profile up to date? And sometimes we get homework assignments and notes. That should count, right? Whatever. The point is, until Dr. Mark Dean came along, computers were mostly giant boxes too big and clumsy to have in the average home or office. Then he and another scientist, Dennis Muller, invented the industry standard architecture, or the ISA systems bus, which is a doohickey that allows you to connect external devices such as printers or keyboards. He made the computer practical for the rest of us. In fact, Dr. Dean holds 3 of the 9 patents for the original IBM personal computer and holds more than 40 patents in all. He kind of reminds me of my brother, the writer says. When Dr. Dean was a kid in Jefferson City, Tennessee, he got straight A's too. Must have been weird when his classmates kept asking him if he was really black because he was so smart. Of course, they do ask him if he's from this planet because he's such an intelligent person, but that's another story. So, a little bit about Dr. Mark Dean, who holds 3 of the original IBM patents. Ladies and gentlemen, that was a lot of Black history in under 30 minutes. If you would like to come on and discuss any of the Black history that you heard tonight or something that inspired you about the work, please click the camera and I will bring you on. So, lots and lots to think about. I think the thing that stood out to me most tonight was Stacey Abrams and her encounter, and how one person can just ruin what is supposed to be a unforgettable night, right? Or an unforgettable event. And I know that as an African American in this country, I have to make sure that I don't allow that to happen. There's been opportunities for that to happen. But I know in my own self, I try to make sure that I don't allow the things that people do that are unfair or unjust or ungodly ruin memorable moments and events for me. So I'm going to bring Pastor Ben in here, and Pastor Ben is going to give us his response and insights tonight. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm going to touch on Stacey Abrams just a little. Then I'm going to go to the other ones.
You're breaking up just a little bit, Pastor Ben.
She came out of nowhere. How about now? Because I had trouble getting on tonight.
Okay. I can hear you a little better.
Okay. It was like she literally came out of nowhere and became such a powerful impact because of the wrongdoing that happened. Let me put it that way. That they, instead of them taking away her power, they actually empowered her.
Yeah, they gave her more power.
They gave her that extra drive. See, so they have a problem understanding us. Because many of us, the more you try to push us down, the harder we're coming.
Yeah.
You know.
That's definitely I would say a character trait, that if you come at us or you come against us, we're gonna show you better than we can tell you. And I think Maya Angelou encapsulated it very well when she said, "Out of the ashes we rise." Right? I am the hope and the dream of the formerly enslaved. I'm going to rise. I'm going to keep on rising. I'm going to keep on rising. Somebody else said they tried to bury us, but they didn't know that we were seeds. So we just continue to rise. So yeah, I can definitely agree with that. Go ahead.
Yeah. And Edison, well, we learned tonight that he was a thief and a copycat. I mean, I'm not being nice about it. Actually, I am being nice about it because we can call him worse than that. But I mean, that's basically what he was.
They didn't call him a thief in the book, but I mean,
yeah.
you lost lawsuits because you were hijacking other people's designs and improving upon them, but you were not the originator.
Right. So a thief. and the way and the part where Latimer got the patent, but he didn't get any pay.
He didn't get that residual. And see, we were talking about that last night.
Yep.
About what is going on with the issue of not being able to build generational wealth really wraps itself around that residual income. It wraps itself around royalties. Like I was very happy this tax season to see all my receipts come in. And it said royalties, which means when I leave this plane, I have things in the earth that I can leave to, for me, my godchildren, where they can collect royalties into perpetuity. And so we have to think about that, not just being excited to be used, right? Or not just being excited to be paid in the moment, but thinking about the long term, because he was making good money. Like they bumped him up. I think from $3 a week to 20 something or something like that. So that was a huge pay increase in the present for him. But that residual, like I'm sure there's descendants of Edison and all those other people who are still getting paid off of what Edison did have.
Exactly.
That's what you call long money. Or old money.
And okay, now I'm going to talk very quickly about Dean with the 3 patents for IBM. He was the guy that actually brought color to the computer.
Yep.
See, and sometimes I run across these people on Facebook. I call them people, but they prove otherwise because they keep that word of black. Dude, do you have the time? Really? I mean, do you have the time?
Right.
Because I can give you a whole list, and it's going to take you a long time. Now, on the flip side of that, what have white people done to this country?
I find it interesting. I mean, I don't know if we could run some of them off the internet simply by telling them, every time you look at yourself in color, you're looking through the lens of a black man.
You know what? I'm going to try that. I didn't think about that. I'm going to try that. And I'll tell him, look up Dean. He was the guy that brought color to the computer. So every time you see yourself in the computer and you see it in color, or on your iPhone or smartphone, and you see it in color, that was a black man responsible for that.
Yep.
There was a black man responsible for the telegraph. There was a black man responsible for radiation. So
anytime you engage in any of that, while you around here talking about black people not being worth anything, you're literally benefiting from the things that black people brought into fruition.
A couple of years ago, I saw it was like a skit with a film where there was this white guy and a black guy. The white guy was talking about what black people never did anything. He went to turn the light bulb on. The guy said, you can't use that. Black man. With the guess he grabbed something out of the refrigerator, he said, black man. So it was everything the guy went to use. He said, you can't use it. Black man created that or invented that. So that was just showing how much black people did invent
Mm-hmm.
that y'all take for granted.
Yeah.
See, y'all say y'all didn't do nothing. Well, what y'all did, y'all went and hijacked our descendants and brought them over here.
Yeah.
Because y'all was too lazy to work.
Yeah, I mean, I find it very interesting. I put up on our historical African American images page a gentleman who wrote a book about us being on the money for the Confederacy. And I mean, it's full color images. And I think it's interesting because we often talk here after we read, The History of the Black Dollar by Angel Rich. We talk often about how Black people were literally the cash, the capital, and the credit, and the insurance, really, for this country. And you have people who now have amnesia. Selective amnesia, who don't want to admit how vital Black bodies were to the economy of this system. But it's like your own history is telling on you. So this man who wrote about it, he wasn't like looking for this stuff. He actually came upon Confederate money that literally have the enslaved on the money. Literally. So it's like you can't even run from that truth because literally your own racist currency that you put out, your own currency is exposing you that you literally thought that we were the cash and the capital and the credit. So again, it's like, why are you trying to deny this history when your own evidence is telling the story? Why would you try to deny reparations when literally we were on the money?
Well, see, today they would call that fake news. See, that's what they would call it today, fake news.
Well, that fake news can be put literally in their hands. So it's like, look at this. This is what your forefathers on the Confederate side, this is what they were fighting for. They were fighting for humans to remain property and capital. That's what they were fighting for. And literally their printed money shows that.
Listen, you remind me of something that came across Facebook today, and I read, but I can't. It's hard for me not to respond to foolishness. I mean, when you go to talking about the black and white thing, because I have to let them know who they are. See, I really do. And it was just one guy. He was posting something concerning Flores, and his previous owner. You got that word right?
Oh yeah, they keep the vocabulary flowing.
Owner. O-W-N-E-R. Not his previous employer, but his previous owner. Oh, I had to go there. Listen, dude, you just told us exactly who you are. Because black people are not owned by white people anymore. That was back in slavery. So you're letting us know your mentality about this whole situation. So your view of this thing is biased right from the jump. Because you're looking at slaves. You got the owner, you got the slave owner mentality. Well, we're supposed to just shut up. You talk bad about us, but we can't speak the truth. We're not supposed to defend ourselves. We've been out of that system.
Yeah.
We've been out of that system.
Unfortunately, there are lots of people that still think that we're in that system. And that is part of the problem, especially here in the United States.
I went there too.
I mean, yes, it's an issue all around the world. But for us to be a supposedly developed country, we still have a lot of undeveloped minds. For us to be a developed country, we have a lot of undeveloped minds here. So, final thoughts, Pastor Ben?
Well, we need some of our white partners. Well, I know we got plenty of Stephen Matlock, a whole bunch of other guys. They're out there fighting for us by our side. They are. They really are. And I got to give that to them. But we need more.
You're right.
We need more.
You're
We
right.
need more to take this thing further. See, we can, as a friend of my old schoolmate, white girl, white lady. Me and her just became Facebook friends maybe about a month and a half now.
Mm-hmm.
And she's actually learning from me. She wants to learn. She wants to know. And then she asked me, she said, well, what is it that we can do about it?
Mm-hmm.
I said, us as blacks, we can't. I said, it's the whites that has to fight by us. There are doors and things that they can get into that we can't. They have influences that we don't, because we've been screaming for 400 years and we've been ignored.
Yeah.
So,
and it's interesting because, again, you know my theory. We're not going to have 100% black people participation in their own freedom and liberation.
No.
I would love for that to be the case, but I'll take 80%. Right now, we're probably about at 50, 55. We need to be at about 80 because everybody is not in it for their own liberation. Some people are like, I'm a happy slave, leave me alone. I'm not even talking to them anymore. I'm not talking to the happy slaves.
Me either.
I don't have the brain capacity to waste on that. So I want the 80%. I need 55 to come to 80. That's what I need. But in terms of white America, some of the things that the previous generations were able to get done was because there were white people who stepped up and went into the spaces that we could not get into to go to bat. So yes, we do not need the white supremacists or the white nationalists to outweigh in their actions and in their energy in taking us backwards. We don't need that to outweigh what white allies are supposed to be doing. And so I agree with that 100%. At this point, I'm just like, don't tell me what you're doing. If you really moving for me, I'm going to see it.
Exactly. You're going to see it.
I don't need no more lip service. I don't need no more apologies. I don't need no more I'm so sorries. I don't need no more I feel bad about it. We all feel bad about it. Okay? We all feel the pressure of it. The question is, what are you doing about it in your all white spaces that you know are not going to invite black people in?
Right.
What are you doing in those spaces? What are you saying in those spaces? How are you pushing back against what you know is wrong in those all white spaces? I'm talking about people who are in all white spaces where they're handing out scholarships and loans, and loan forgiveness is on the table, and boardrooms where they're looking for who's gonna become a part of the board of directors. What are you saying in those spaces? If you say you're for me, then you should be at that table, that all white table, advocating in the spaces that we are not in. And if you're truly doing that, we're going to see the results of what you are truly doing if you're doing the work.
And I want to mention one more person. That's Dana Stevens. I think that he's just been banned indefinitely from Facebook.
Oh yeah, he has. He's been banned permanently for about a year now, or more.
Yeah. Right. He was able to get on once for a few seconds, and I caught it, and that was it. So they don't want truth. That's the bottom line. They don't want truth.
But remember, we've talked about this before, that a lot of the future fight is going to have to be them against their own people. And we saw what went down with Kyle Rittenhouse. We saw how that went.
Yeah.
And so that was a very clear signal that if you are going to be on the side of justice, and if you are going to be on the side of equality, and if you are going to be on the side of making sure that African Americans have what they need to have in this country, that you are considered an enemy So you need to be prepared for that, because at this point you're considered one of us, or what they would say in the civil rights times, the N word lover.
Mm-hmm.
And so for them, it's like, oh, if you are on their side, then you can get this same heat that we want to give them.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're coming into this thinking, I'm going to just be able to reason with racists, everything that they're doing is irrational.
You can't reason with the demonic spirit.
I mean, just the whole premise of what they believe about black people is irrational. So trying to approach them from I want to reason with you, I don't think that is going to work. I think what will work is replacing them in political spaces, in seats of power, and shifting the laws and legislation so that whatever they're trying to do, their prejudice is locked out. So right now, they're trying to lock their prejudices in.
Right.
That's what a lot of Americans don't understand. These people are thinking 50, 100, 200 years in the future. They're trying to lock their prejudices in through law and policy, and we need white people in those spaces pushing back to make sure they do not lock in white supremacy for the next 50 to 100 to 200 to 500 years through policy.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we need.
How do you spell racism?
Policy.
Yes.
And again, until we understand that, you can do a lot of hollering, jumping, twirling, clapping, slapping your neighbor 2 and 3 times, but you better find out what the policies are that are being put into place in your state. There are certain states you cannot pay me to move to right now. One of them being Florida. I'm from Florida. I was born in Florida. But what's happening in the political realm is locking in racial discrimination through your current governor.
Mm-hmm.
So if I had a child right now, I would be looking for another state to move to that I would call a free state. Because what is going on in Florida with schools, that is going to not be good for the next 10 to 20 years of education in Florida. Same thing with Virginia. We fought for the past 10 years to turn things around in Virginia. And now the governor of Virginia is about to pretty much undo a lot of what has progressed in the last 10 years. He's about to undo it. And so again, that's another state where if you have children, young children, still school age children, you need to be concerned. Another state, Mississippi, same thing. Georgia, same thing. Arizona, same thing. So my thing is like, don't just look at, oh, I want to move to this state because the real estate is cheap. What's the education system like? What's the healthcare system like? Nothing like buying a cheap home in a place where you can't go to the hospital. Or they're literally making sure your children can't read and write. So you got to look at the whole picture. Now, I do know some people who are moving to Mississippi right now, but all of their children are out of college, in the military. They have no little children. I'm like, still, I wouldn't move to Mississippi personally, not with the history of Mississippi, no way in the world. But they don't have school age children to worry about. But if you had school age children, I would be like, that's a red flag. You might not want to move there. Poor quality of life, poor quality of living, poor quality of healthcare. Yeah. Bad infrastructure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the guy here The guy here, he's trying to change the zoning lines so he can get more Republicans in black areas to vote.
Mm. Yeah, that's the other thing.
You now.
Maryland is getting ready. Well, a lot of places are doing their redistricting. They're trying to redraw the lines. But we have people here in the Senate, African Americans, who are pushing back against some of these lines that they're trying to redraw. So again, as I said before, it matters who is up there pushing and who is up there advocating. Because if you don't have people in these spaces, they're just going to be passing policies. That's why a lot of them are so quiet right now. I know I have white friends, but they quiet. Why are they quiet? Because they're letting the policies do the work for them. That's why they quiet. Now, yeah, you got a few of the radical ones that want to come up here to DC and march and all that. But the majority of them are quiet. Why are they quiet? Because they know that the policies are going to keep on churning discrimination. They don't have anything to worry about. There's nobody in there really pushing back in some of these states as to what's happening. Same thing on the local level. You have to get involved in your local government. You have to get involved in your little town council. I don't care if it's 6 people at the meeting. Go to the meeting so they can know somebody is here. Somebody is reading. Somebody is looking at your agenda. But because we don't show up sometimes, they think, maybe there's no black people in this community that actually care about what we're doing.
Right.
Or, oh, I didn't know it was that many black people in this community. Let us rethink this. Because when you show up in numbers, they're like, oh, okay. Okay, they out here. They out here. But if you never show up, they assume that you're not there.
In this case, the map had already been drawn and approved earlier this year by Republicans. Okay, but he didn't like it. So he wanted to try to go in and change it. He gave them another map and said, this is what I want. But from my understanding, it ain't going anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, these are some things that definitely we need to be on and be paying attention and just not sit idly by. Not sit idly by. So I know for our county, we have some more county meetings coming up and they're all virtual. So I'm going to be on these meetings. We have state representatives that send us out notices about when meetings are. You could schedule a 1-to-1. Also, with all of the things happening with food and food insecurity, our representatives actually send us out a list every week to say, here are the grocery stores in your region. Here's who has food. Here's who has somewhat has a stockpile of food. And here are the stores that are completely out. So I wrote them back and I said, none of the grocery stores that I go to are on your list. Why is that? All the grocery stores you mentioned are the pale people stores, and I don't really shop there. But the stores that all the black and brown people shop at, y'all don't call those stores to get a reading on what's available. I need you to work on this. I need you to fix this. Oh, we are so sorry. We are so sorry. Oh, okay. The next list I see need to have these stores on it. So don't come telling me that you're serving your citizenry, but you're leaving off the stores that black and brown people shop at. Right?
Yeah. That's kind of obvious.
So if you sending out a notice to all of your citizenry talking about here are the stores and here's what's available, and all the stores that Black and brown people shop at, none of those are on your list. I'm talking about the stores in our communities. They're not on your list, but the stores that are in the predominantly white and Jewish communities, those stores are on your list. Stores I ain't never even heard of. Mom and pop stores on there. But these larger retailers that sit in Black and brown neighborhoods, those are not on there. And then I went to my grocery store and I said, "Do you know?" See, I'm gonna hit it in the front and the back. I'm gonna hit it both ways. Do you know they have this list they put out that advertises all these other grocery stores and what they have available, but y'all are not on that list? They were like, "Really?" I said, "Oh yeah, really." Because if you think about it, they're also giving those stores advertisement. That's free advertisement.
Right. Advertisement.
Across the district. So how are you going to leave out the other retailers and only zone in on these 4 or 5 stores? I said, just something to think about. Have a nice day. I'm just saying. You gotta, if they put it out there, you have a responsibility. You as a citizen can respond back. You say you're serving the community, but this list does not serve me. I don't know how you got my email, but if you got my email, I need whatever you sending me to actually serve me.
That's right.
Not just having my email just be sending something out to say, "Oh, I sent it out." No. We're not doing that here. Because if that's the case, I'm just going to put you on spam, block user, send to spam. That won't put you on. Because you're not sending me things that matter to me. This has been, because we can keep on talking, this has been another episode of Daring Dialogues, and I've been your host tonight, Shantae Charles. I hope you got some Black history, some community organizing, and a little bit of grassroots tips on tonight. Remember, light is the most daring opposition to darkness. So continue to go out and be what, Pastor Ben?
Light.
Be light. Take care, everyone, and God bless.